So last week I went and saw the Barbie movie, and I'll admit it, I thought it was going to be trash. I thought it was going to be another piece of pseudo-feminist, woke Hollywood garbage that has become unbelievably pervasive within almost every single facet of culture at this point in time. All of Ben Shapiro's review,
Well, this movie was a piece of garbage, and hypothetically speaking, it was not giving wet-ass P-word, and Greta Gerwig needs to be eliminated from Hollywood immediately.
So yeah, I was kind of under the impression that, this movie would just be a story about bashing men and uplifting women, and the only way that you can uplift women in today's day and age is to smite men and to tell them they are worthless pieces of garbage. And I really thought that that would be the case for this movie, but I was completely incorrect. I was wrong in every capacity. This movie was not only just not that, it was genuinely a beautiful look into the differences between men and women in the modern era, the problems that we're facing within ourselves and within each other. And of course, it had to be a movie about plastic dolls that little girls play with, and maybe some little boys too, I don't know what we're working with in today's day and age, to perfectly illustrate the relational dynamics between men, women, and how all of that intersects with power, naturally. Of course, this movie has been wildly controversial following its release. You have the Ben Shapiro camp of people who are like, yeah, it's just more feminist propaganda. And then you have the other side of the coin, and it's all of these Spencer Barbosa girl boss types who are sitting around like, yeah, it was giving pink, it was giving girl, it was so nice to see the girlies on screen destroying the man. And yeah, so upon seeing these reviews and the thoughts about the Barbie movie, I've come to the conclusion that both sides are filled with idiots and morons, and because of the genius that I am, I will offer you an extremely nuanced, sophisticated, and salient review of Barbie. I'm just kidding. But yeah, let's get into it, shall we?
And I'm bad like the Barbie. I'm a doll, but I still wanna party.
The Barbie movie begins in Barbie Land, and we get to see the Barbie society. And naturally, it is a matriarchy where the Barbies are in all of the positions of power. They are the president, they're the Supreme Court justices, they're girl bosses, they're queens, etc. Margot Robbie, our main character, is stereotypical Barbie. And the day in the life for her and for the rest of the Barbies is she wakes up and her hair's perfect. She looks immaculate. Hops into the shower. There's no water running in the shower because she's a plastic doll. But she takes a shower and then floats down from her house. And she makes a lovely breakfast, a perfectly browned toasted waffle with some cream, and then drinks some oat milk, realistically. Filled with sugar, by the way, super unhealthy for you. She drinks the oat milk, and she waves to all of the other Barbies in their beautiful Barbie homes. And they're all like, hi Barbie, hi Barbie, hi Barbie. But yeah, it's just this utopia for the Barbies. Then we go down to the beach, and we see all of the Kens doing their job, which is beach. The Kens are all a bunch of incompetent, himbo losers who are not very attractive people. They're not very smart. They hold no positions of power whatsoever. And surprise, surprise, the Barbies don't really like the Kens at all. They're nice to look at. They're entertaining for a second, but they don't like the Kens because the Kens are simps, the biggest beta males in the world. Their purpose within Barbie Land is to gain the attention and validation of the Barbies. Our main character, Ken, phenomenally played by Ryan Gosling, as usual, who naturally is playing yet another lonely, autistic man. All he wants to do is impress Barbie. And he's doing it in the way that a 12-year-old boy would try and impress a girl at recess at school, where he's running by her as fast as he can. And he's like, hey Barbie, watch this. I'm gonna go and surf. And then he, runs into the imaginary waves and injures himself. Then after the Barbies go and see the Kens beaching each other off, they go and have their nightly dance party at the Barbie house. And all of the Barbies are perfectly in sync. They have their routine. They're dancing around to Dua Lipa. And Ken is sitting in the corner with his drink, and he's like, Barbie's not noticing me. Now I have to do everything I can. He's like breakdancing. Him and Simu Lee, or whatever his name is, they're competing for the attention and approval of Barbie. And right in the middle of the routine, Barbie goes, does anyone ever have any feelings of death? And the rest of the Barbies are like, the hell are you talking about, girly? And she's like, okay, never mind. I'm fine. I'm totally okay. And then keeps dancing, and everything is great. So the next morning, Barbie wakes up and her hair's not perfect. Her hair is a mess, and by a mess, there's, a little bit of frizz, 2 hairs out of place. And she's like, that's strange. She gets into the shower and burns herself on the imaginary hot water. And then she falls down from her house instead of gracefully floating and proceeds to burn her waffle to a crisp. And the milk that she drinks is spoiled. And she's like, what the hell is going on with me? So Barbie goes down to the beach and she takes her shoes off and she realizes that her feet are flat. And she consults the other Barbies. And they go, yeah, stereotypical Barbie. You gotta go and see Weird Barbie. And Margot Robbie Barbie is like, Weird Barbie? I'm not going and seeing Weird Barbie. There's no fucking way. Then she looks down at her leg and she's like, oh, there's cellulite there. I don't even know what that is. And she's like, fine, fuck it. I'll go and see Weird Barbie. So Weird Barbie is played by Kate McKinnon. And just looking at her design, I'm like, and here comes the feminism. Here it comes. And once again, I was completely wrong somehow. Kate McKinnon was hilarious, whimsical, just a nice, fun, kind of cartoony character. And there wasn't really anything political going on at all. But I really enjoyed Weird Barbie for the sole reason of the fact that she has been ostracized from society. She's a complete pariah because, she looks all messed up. But she's free. And she's not like complaining in the mirror, I'm not pretty, I'm not beautiful. She genuinely has accepted herself as being Weird Barbie, and she's totally okay with that, and she's at peace with that, and doesn't feel as if she needs to be this stereotypically perfect person. And it was great too, because she's not one of these girls who's like popular and is like, look at how fucking weird I am. Like, get me away from pizza. I eat pizza and I'm so strange. I'm literally unhinged. I'm crazy. Like, she's not like that at all. So Kate McKinnon, Weird Barbie, reveals to Margot Robbie Barbie that the reason for the cellulite, why she burned herself in the shower, is because in the real world, there is somebody who's playing with Barbie and they're going through it. They're in distress, they're depressed, they're in dire straits. And Barbie's quest is that she has to go and find her person in the real world and essentially get her to be happy again. So Margot Robbie Barbie loses her cellulite on her thigh. So Barbie embarks on her journey to go to the real world and find her person. And Ken, of course, sneaks into the back of her car and he's like, hey Barbie, I'm joining you for the ride. It's going to be super cool. It's going to be super great. So they arrive in the real world and they're rollerblading on Santa Monica Pier in the most ridiculous outfits of all time. And everybody is oogling and ogling at Barbie and Ken. And Barbie is super uncomfortable at this. She's like, why are all these strange men looking at me? Like, this is gross. This is weird. I don't like this at all. And Ken is exactly the opposite. He's like, this is super cool because people are finally acknowledging him and just paying attention to him. And he hasn't really received that in Barbie Land. So then some guy, comes up behind Barbie and slaps her on the ass. She punches him in the face and they go to jail. And then they steal some clothes from a store and it's supposed to be like, oh yeah, like Barbies don't see clothes as clothes. They don't have to pay for them because they're just accessories in our world. And then they go back to jail again and then they go back to jail again for something else. So Barbie and Ken are sitting outside of the county jail and she goes, Ken, I have to find my person. Maybe you should go off and look for her. And he's like, okay, Barbie, I'll do that. And she's sitting down and she's thinking really hard and she has a vision of her person and it turns out to be this girl called Sasha. Meanwhile, Ken stumbles off into the city and he sees all of these buildings and these men walking by in suits and people are looking at him and they're calling him sir. And he goes up the escalator into one of these buildings and he essentially gets red-pilled by this montage of a bunch of men doing manly stuff, playing sports, boxing, running and jumping, closing deals, shaking hands, wearing fur coats, and riding horses. And Ken has this revelation and he goes, oh my goodness, men control the world. This is incredible. So this is what it could be like being a man? Like, where has this been in Barbie Land my entire life? So after Ken discovers that the patriarchy exists, he goes out and he tries to find work. And he walks into an office building and he looks at one of these guys in a suit and he's like, hey, I want to do business. And they're like, what are you talking about? And he's like, we can't do business. And they're like, no, you're not qualified. You actually have no idea what you're talking about. Somebody get this lunatic out of my office. So Ken goes to a hospital and he walks in and looks at a doctor, sees her and goes, "Hey, I want to perform a laparoscopy." And she's like, "Sir, not how it works. Not how it works at all." And he's like, "What do you mean? I'm a man." And she's like, "Yeah, I know you're a man." And he's like, "Wait a second. I thought because I was a man, I was able to get whatever job that I wanted." And then he goes down to the beach and tries to become a lifeguard. It's beach. It's his thing. And the lifeguard goes, "Well, can you swim?" And Ken's like, "No, but I can beach really good. I can beach super hard." And he doesn't get the job. And this scene is so interesting because it proves that the idea that a lot of people have pertaining to the patriarchy on both the male and the female side is completely fallacious in every way. Just because you are a man does not mean that you succeed underneath the patriarchy automatically. There's no such thing as male nepotism. It's not like you walk into a job with no degree, no qualifications whatsoever, and you look at the guy, who's hiring you, and you're also a guy, and he's like, "Well, you're a guy, I'm a guy. By virtue of that, you get the job." That's not how it works. It's extremely difficult for both men and women to be successful under the system that for some reason we call the patriarchy, that literally oppresses men just as much as it oppresses women, but that's a talking point for another video. So Ken and Barbie meet back up and they go and they look for Sasha. And they end up finding Sasha at her middle school. And Barbie sees Sasha immediately and she goes, "Hey Sasha, what's going on? I'm Barbie, hi." And Sasha looks up at Barbie with the most smug fucking expression on her face and she goes, "You're Barbie? You set feminism back 50 years. You're responsible for the commodification and the over-sexualization of women everywhere. You've proliferated all of this misogyny in this world. You're a fascist." And Barbie runs away and she's like crying. "No, I'm a fascist. How could my person call me a fascist?" And this scene was so obviously making fun of this archetype of like young, modern, liberal person who's just labeling everybody as some kind of ism, some kind of ist. And they're just the most insufferable human beings on the planet. Like, shut the fuck up. And I'm really glad that Greta Gerwig had absolutely zero hesitation to portray that kind of a person for what they are, which is stupid. Meanwhile, Will Ferrell, who is the CEO of Mattel, this is completely pointless, but he gets word that Barbie has escaped, and he sends his cronies to capture Barbie, and the black van pulls up, and they're like, "Are you Barbie?" And Barbie's like, "Yeah, we'll get in the car with us," and she's like, "Okay." And Ken is hiding in the bushes, and he escapes, and he goes back to Barbie Land. At this point, we're introduced to probably my favorite character in the movie, and it's Sasha's mom, and she's called Gloria. And Gloria comes to pick Sasha up from school, and Gloria kind of haphazardly asks Sasha about how her day went, and Sasha goes, "Yeah, there was this weird woman who was like pretending to be Barbie, like, ew, Barbie, gross." And then Sasha sees Barbie getting into the Mattel SUV with the cronies, and she's like, "Oh my goodness, Barbie." And she turns to Sasha and she's like, "Do you remember when we used to play with Barbie when you were a kid?" And Sasha's like, "Yeah, I don't fucking care." And there's something inside of Gloria that compels her to go and try and save Barbie. She can just feel it. And we find out that Sasha is not Barbie's person, it was Gloria. And Gloria, who works for Mattel, I believe, has been drawing these sketches of depressed Barbie, and depressed Barbie is in the gray sweatpants. She hasn't taken a shower in a week. She is not doing well at all. And Gloria's character perfectly illustrates what I would consider to be a societal epidemic that probably has existed for long periods of time, but I'm not really hearing too many people talk about it at all, so I will. And that is, when Sasha was about 4 or 5 years old, Gloria was an incredible parent. She nurtured the child. She engaged in play. And the mother and the daughter had a fantastic relationship. And at that point, that was the most effective way to be a parent. However, when a child is no longer 4 or 5 years old, that way of being a parent does not work anymore. As a preteen, for the first time, you are exposed to the cruelty of society at large. You're exposed to hierarchies. You have all these insecurities. You go through puberty, and I think there are a massive amount of both mothers and fathers who never stop parenting their kid in the way that they did when they were 5 years old. And then Gloria wonders, why doesn't my daughter like me, and why is she such a rampant liberal asshole? It's because you have not evolved with your child at all. And almost every single person I know who's my age has dealt with this. And it's to the point where in a scene later, Sasha has to tell Gloria, like, hey, Mom, you're a little bit crazy and kind of weird, and you need to embrace that part of yourself. And Gloria's driving her car, and you can almost see the weight being lifted from her shoulders, and she's like, oh my goodness, I am super weird and kind of crazy. It's like, look, great scene, super cute, but Gloria, why did you not know this about yourself, and why were you trying to suppress that? But that's another really interesting aspect of this conversation. I know a lot of people experience this. As a child, why are you parenting your parent? That should never happen in a million years. I think this is the case because, honestly, I think a lot of these parents are coming from a very selfless place, and they go, my life is now my kid. Fuck my personality, throw it out of the window and run it over with a jet. That is not the right way to go about being a parent in any capacity. You have to retain your personality and still, like, not lose yourself and not live vicariously through your child. But at the same time, I do understand where these parents are coming from. But also, I totally empathize with Gloria even more because it's like, hey, Sasha, throw me a frickin' bone here. You suck as a person. I know you're my daughter and I know I'm supposed to love you, but like, loving that, it's gonna be a little bit difficult. Long story short, parents, we gotta do better. And kids, we have to learn to not be resentful towards our parents due to their shortcomings, as difficult as it is. Because I'm so sick and tired of fractured families and the unequivocally negative effects they have on everyone involved and society at large as a result. And this movie, I think, perfectly elucidates that with the relationship between Gloria and Sasha. I thought that it would be worth mentioning Gloria's monologue as well.
It is literally impossible to be a woman. You have to be thin, but not too thin. And you can never say you want to be thin. You have to say you want to be healthy, but also you have to be thin. You have to have money, but you can't ask for money because that's crass. You have to be a boss, but you can't be mean. You have to lead, but you can't squash other people's ideas. You're supposed to love being a mother, but don't talk about your kids all the damn time. You have to be a career woman, but also always be looking out for other people. You have to answer for men's bad behavior, which is insane, but if you point that out, you're accused of complaining. You're supposed to stay pretty for men, but not so pretty that you tempt them too much or that you threaten other women, because you're supposed to be a part of the sisterhood, but always stand out and always be grateful. But never forget that the system is rigged, so find a way to acknowledge that, but also always be grateful. You have to never get old, never be rude, never show off, never be selfish, never fall down, never fail, never show fear, never get out of line. It's too hard, it's too contradictory, and nobody gives you a medal or says thank you. And it turns out, in fact, that not only are you doing everything wrong, but also everything is your fault. I'm just so tired of watching myself and every single other woman tie herself into knots so that people will like us.
And Gloria totally hit the nail on the head with that monologue. I know that this is the feeling and the general state of mind of a multitude of women. I mean, almost every woman that I've ever met. And here's the thing. I understand that this is the way that you guys feel, and I know that those feelings are incredibly real to you. But the thing is, stop living for the validation and attention that you receive from society. Stop trying to fit in. Stop trying to be perfect. Stop trying to be this idealistic person that has never fucking existed ever since the dawn of time. Be like weird Barbie. Be you. Embrace the idiosyncrasies within yourself. Embrace who you are as a person intrinsically deep down. Embrace the weird shit. Don't go too weird, but there is no such thing as achieving societal perfection. Stop trying to attain it, because you can't. And even if you did, it would never make you happy. Living for the validation of other people will never bring you fulfillment. This is what Ken has to learn within the story. He lives his life for Barbie and he's miserable. And the thing is, she doesn't even like him. It's disgusting behavior. It's a total turnoff. Stop trying to adhere to society. Stop living for the validation of others and be yourself. So anyway, back in Barbie Land, Ken has now implemented his own contorted, twisted, cliched version of the patriarchy. And all of the Barbies are now these submissive, tradcon 1950s women. The Kens are walking around and Ryan Gosling is using all of this terminology that just isn't correct, where he's like, hey, mini baby, why don't you throw me a brewski beer? And the Barbie's like, I love throwing you brewski beers, Ken. You're such a big man guy. Sasha, Margot Robbie Barbie, and Gloria go back to Barbie Land, and they're like, okay, this patriarchy thing cannot fly. We're gonna have to devise a plan to eliminate the oppressive rule of the Kens. So the Barbies essentially become pick-me girls, and they listen to the Kens play like Wonderwall by Oasis on the acoustic guitar.
Take my hands. Close your eyes. Now feel.
And, you know, they listen to them and they're like, oh my goodness, Ken, you're such a masculinity. And the Kens are just loving it. They're eating it up. They're like, for the first time, the Barbies have finally showed me some kind of attention. This is great. And then they get the Kens to turn on each other. So the following morning, the Kens engage in battle. And Ryan Gosling breaks out into his song, 'cause I'm just Ken, anywhere else I'd be a 10. Great song, by the way. And the song is really interesting because you realize that Ken was not trying to oppress the Barbies per se with the patriarchy. All he wanted was that love and attention from the Barbies, which he and the other Kens were completely starved of. And you kind of get to see how sad and miserable and lonely he is. And it's really pathetic, honestly. Like, I know there's a lot of guys out here who are like, yeah, like, I'm literally Ken, he's literally me, because they finally showed how lonely men are. Yeah, I get it, we're lonely. But being simps and whining about the Barbies, not paying us any attention without putting in any work on ourselves whatsoever, and literally being 12-year-old boys trying to impress these girls is insane. So yeah, as the Kens are fighting each other, the Barbies go into the courtroom and they go, everyone who believes that the Barbie land should return to a matriarchy say aye. All the Barbies say aye. And the matriarchy is reinstated, and the oppressive, tyrannical, authoritarian patriarchy is wiped clean, cleansed from Barbie Land. And right at the end of the movie, Ken essentially tells Barbie, hey, Barbie, I'm sorry about the whole patriarchy thing. As soon as I realized it wasn't about horses and brewski beers, I kind of lost interest and gave up on it. Gloria and Sasha almost have this like beautiful moment where they kind of connect because they've helped save Barbie Land, and they're kind of reliving all of the best moments of their relationship, and they grow in that sense. And the movie was primed. It was so primed for there to be this lovely High School Musical ending. We're all in this together, and everyone rides off into the sunset on their imaginary horses, and that would be the end of the movie. And as corny as it sounds, that really is a good message. It's like, hey, we oppressed you, that didn't work, and you guys didn't like that. So then we oppressed you guys, and the exact same thing happened. Instead of trying to oppress each other, and instead of trying to be in power over the other person, why don't we try to hold the power equally? Why don't we try to share it, or just be a little bit more egalitarian? Instead, the matriarchy still exists, and Barbie is kind of like, yeah, Ken, well, it doesn't have to be girls' night every night. You can have your boys' night once, I guess. And I don't necessarily think that that's the worst message in the world. At least Barbie did concede ever so slightly. But the reality is, Barbie doesn't have a distinct character arc. Yeah, she goes on a physical journey from Barbie Land to the real world, and then from Barbie Land back to the real world, that's for sure. But she doesn't have, or rather, she doesn't go through any discernible growth within this movie at all. Where Ken absolutely grows as a character, where right at the end, he's wearing a shirt that says, I'm enough with a K, I'm Knuff, and you know, he's realized, yeah, maybe I shouldn't be living for the attention and validation of the Barbies. I need to go and work on myself. I need to develop who I am as a person and understand that more. And then maybe I can go my own way, or maybe I can try and find love within Barbie. And all of you gentlemen out there, if you are simping, if you are living your life for women, I hate to say it, they're not going to like you. You have to be, and you're going to hate yourself as well. You have to become in touch and in tune with yourself, with your emotions, with your feelings, with your physicality, all of the above. And it's tough being a guy, but gentlemen, you're going to thank me later because it feels fucking good. And a byproduct of that is all of the Barbies are going to be rushing to you. They're going to love you. It's going to be great. Sasha and Gloria also had a lot of growth within their character arc as well. They kind of learn to try and like each other. Sasha learns to appreciate Gloria for trying her best. And to me, it seemed as if Gloria, you know, is kind of like, yeah, I can't just treat my daughter the same way that I did when she was 5. I have to acknowledge that she's going through a lot of, you know, complex issues. And also, she becomes more in touch and in tune with her true self. And Barbie doesn't really have any of that growth at all. I mean, her final choice at the end of the movie is to go back into the real world and become a human, and that's kind of where her story begins. But we don't see that because that's the ending of the movie. And I can't imagine that feminists were particularly happy about that choice at all. The women in my life who watched the movie quite enjoyed it, but they're not feminists, so. But yeah, forgive me for my ramblings. Let me know what you guys thought. Was this a men's rights activist, literally me, masterpiece? Was it feminist garbage? Was it somewhere in the middle? I'm really curious to hear what the ladies thought about the movie, and specifically what the feminists thought about the movie. Because it seems as if every guy who has watched the movie really enjoyed it because of the whole lonely man, incel, simp kind of sigma male arc with Ken. But yeah, I'm super curious to know how you guys felt about it, and yeah, let me know what you think. Bye bye. Dislike and